Japanese CEO was waiting for the plane with his mute daughter, but froze in shock when the new black maid spoke to her in sign language. Kato Tanaka had mastered the art of reading people, boardrooms, negotiations, and hostile takeovers. But sitting at gate 23, watching his daughter's hands move in quick, graceful patterns, he realized he'd been missing an entire conversation. Sakura was signing something, not the simple hungry or tired Kato had learned to recognize, but something deeper, layered with an emotion he couldn't name. Before he could pull out his phone to look up the unfamiliar signs, a woman with kind eyes knelt beside them. Her hands answered Sakura in the same flowing language, and his daughter's whole face transformed, lit from within in a way Kato hadn't seen in months. They were talking, really talking, the kind of conversation that makes you forget the world around you. And Kato realized with a quiet ache in his chest that he was standing on the outside of his own daughter's world. What was Sakura saying that made her smile like that? The flight to Boseman had been Kato's idea, though he couldn't quite remember when desperation had turned into an actual plan. Somewhere between the third therapist, who gently suggested he meet Sakura where she is, and the custody mediation, where Keiko's lawyer had used the phrase of communication barriers 6 times. He'd booked 2 tickets to Montana, a week away from everything, just him and Sakura. No interpreters, no assistants, no buffer between them. The thought terrified him more than any shareholder meeting ever had. Sakura sat cross-legged in the uncomfortable airport chair, her faded pink backpack shaped like a lucky cat resting against her feet. She'd had that backpack since she was 4, and despite Kato's attempts to buy her newer, more age-appropriate things, Sakura refused to let it go. The fabric was worn thin in places, one of the straps carefully stitched where it had torn last summer. Kato had done that repair himself late one night at the kitchen table, watching a YouTube tutorial with the sound off so he wouldn't wake Sakura. It was one of the few times he'd felt like he was doing something right. The airport terminal buzzed with the usual chaos of a Friday afternoon. Families headed to ski resorts. Business travelers hunched over laptops. A group of college students already celebrating something with overpriced beers. Sakura watched them all with the careful attention she gave everything, her dark eyes taking in details Kato probably missed. She'd always been observant, even as a baby. The pediatric Ian had noticed it first, the way 6-month-old Sakura would track movement but startle at vibrations instead of sounds. By her first birthday, they had the diagnosis, profound bilateral sensorineural hearing loss. Kato had memorized every syllable of those words, as if understanding the medical terminology would somehow make it easier. It hadn't, but they'd adapted. Kato had thrown himself into learning American Sign Language with the same intensity he brought to everything else. He'd hired a deaf tutor, bought every book and app available. For the first year, he'd been diligent, determined. He'd signed everything, narrated their days in ASL, filled their home with visual cues and vibrating alerts. Keiko had tried too, for a while. But where Kato saw ASL as a language to master, Keiko saw it as a temporary solution until they could fix the problem. The arguments had started small. Should they pursue a cochlear implant? How much speech therapy versus ASL immersion? Was it fair to raise Sakura in what Keiko called a limited world? Looking back, Kato could see that the marriage had ended long before the divorce papers were filed. They'd just been speaking different languages at each other, neither one really listening. Now, watching Sakura's hands move in patterns he only partially understood, Kato felt the full weight of his failures. He'd learned ASL, yes, enough to manage daily routines. Enough to ask if Sakura wanted sushi or pasta, if she'd finished her homework, if she was tired or cold. Functional language. Survival language. But somewhere in the chaos of taking his tech company public, he'd stopped progressing, stopped learning the nuance, the poetry, the emotional depth that turned simple signs into real conversation. He told himself it was fine. Sakura had interpreters at school. They used text messages. They communicated. But there was a difference between communicating and connecting, and Kato was only now beginning to understand the canyon between them. Sakura's hand stilled, and she looked up at her father with a question in her eyes. Kato recognized the sign for where and something about time, but the rest blurred together too quickly. He pulled out his phone, ready to type a response, when a shadow fell across them. "Excuse me," a voice said, warm and gentle. I couldn't help but notice. Kato looked up to find a woman standing a respectful distance away, maybe in her early 30s, with a simple brown ponytail and a plain grey sweatshirt. Everything about her suggested a world far removed from his own. But it was her eyes that caught his attention, kind eyes that seemed to hold a deep well of patience. She wasn't smiling at him, but at Sakura. She knelt down slowly and brought her hands up. Kato watched, frozen, as her fingers moved in fluid, confident ASL. Not the careful, textbook signs he'd learned, but something more natural, more alive. She was asking Sakura about her Lucky Cat backpack. Sakura's whole face lit up. Her hands flew in response, so fast Kato only caught fragments. Something about cats being her favorite and a book she'd read. The woman laughed, a genuine, soft sound, and signed something back that made Sakura giggle silently, her small shoulders shaking with mirth. Kato felt something twist in his chest. When was the last time he'd made Sakura laugh like that? When was the last time they'd had a conversation that went beyond logistics? The woman glanced up at him, her smile softening. "Sorry, I should have introduced myself first," she said, switching to spoken English. "I'm Anya. I grew up signing with my younger brother, he's deaf." She stood, offering a small, polite nod. "Kato Tanaka. And this is Sakura." "Sakura," Anya repeated, signing the name to her. "Like the cherry blossom. That's a beautiful name." Sakura nodded enthusiastically and signed something elaborate. Anya's eyebrows rose. "Oh," she said, her father picked it because cherry blossoms are beautiful and strong, but they remind us to cherish every moment. She looked at Kato with a new appreciation. "That's a very thoughtful choice." Kato felt a flush of heat on his neck. He had said that once, in the hospital room. Keiko had wanted something more American, like Jessica. But Kato had insisted on Sakura. He'd hoped the name would be a kind of armor. "Thank you," he managed. "Are you traveling with family?" Kato asked, his CEO instincts kicking in, categorizing, assessing. Anya shook her head. "No, I'm relocating. For a new job. Heading out to start on Monday." She paused, then added, "Actually, I was wondering if you'd mind if I sat with you for a bit. The flight's delayed 90 minutes, and it's just nice to see someone signing." Kato should have said no. He valued his privacy. But Sakura was already patting the empty seat beside her, signing something that he interpreted as please, and there was something in Anya's calm demeanor that seemed trustworthy. Or maybe he was just desperate for someone who could talk to his daughter the way he couldn't. "Of course," he said. "We'd love the company." Anya settled into the chair, and within seconds she and Sakura were deep in conversation. Kato watched, trying to follow along, catching maybe one word in three. Sakura was telling her about school, about her art class, about something that had happened at recess. Anya responded with a focused attention most adults didn't give children, asking follow-up questions, reacting with genuine interest. At one point, Anya pulled out her phone and showed Sakura a photo of a young man standing next to a vibrant painting, his hands mid-sign. Sakura's eyes went wide, and she signed something rapid and excited. "She's asking about my brother's art," Anya translated, glancing at Kato. "He's a painter. She says she wants to be an artist when she grows up, too." This was news to Kato. He knew Sakura liked to draw, but he hadn't realized it was a dream. That twist in his chest tightened. When was the last time Sakura had shared a dream with him? When their conversation lulled, Sakura turned to Kato and signed something elaborate, her expressions animated. He caught the signs for friend and fun, but the rest was lost. He looked helplessly at Anya. "She said she doesn't have any deaf friends at her school," Anya translated carefully. "Just hearing kids who know some signs. She was excited to talk to me because it felt easy." The words hit Kato like a physical blow. Sakura's school had a top-tier deaf and hard of hearing program. But a program wasn't a community. His daughter had been lonely in ways he hadn't even noticed. "I didn't know," he said quietly. She never said. "Did you ask?" Anya's voice was gentle, but the question landed with force. Had he asked, really asked in a way that invited an honest conversation? Or had he just checked boxes? School good? Homework done? He'd been conducting a daily status meeting with his 6-year-old daughter. Before he could spiral further, his phone buzzed. Keiko's name flashed on the screen. He silenced it. She'd been calling all day, furious about the Montana trip. The phone buzzed again, then again. "Sorry," he muttered. "My ex-wife. She's not happy about this trip." Anya nodded. "I see. She thinks I'm being impulsive," Keito continued, the word spilling out. That Sakura needs routine. He didn't add the rest of what Keiko had said, that Keito was compensating for guilt with grand gestures, that he was considering filing for primary custody because Sakura deserved a parent who could actually understand her. Anya made a thoughtful sound. Does Sakura like routine? It was such a simple question. His daughter ate the same breakfast every morning and wore the same Lucky Cat backpack. But was that preference or habit? "I don't know," Keito admitted, and the honesty of it felt like defeat. Anya watched Sakura, who was now drawing on her tablet. When she spoke, her voice was quiet. "My parents, they struggled a lot when my brother was diagnosed. My father was a busy executive, just like you. He'd come home late, convinced he was failing his son. He would try so hard to sign, but he was always clumsy, always behind. He felt like he wasn't enough." She paused. "I learned that being present isn't the same as being there. You can be in the same room and miles apart." The word settled over Keito like a heavy blanket. He thought about his penthouse apartment, about Sakura's room filled with every educational toy money could buy. He'd built an empire and called it love. He'd confused providing with parenting. "I've been present," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "I'm there for breakfast. I check her homework." Anya nodded slowly. "I believe you. But can you tell me what Sakura's favorite color is?" Keito's mind went blank. "Pink, obviously. The backpack, her bedspread." "Pink," he said with confidence. Anya smiled and signed something to Sakura. Sakura's hands moved in response, and she giggled. Anya looked back at Keito. "She says her favorite color used to be pink, but now it's teal, like the ocean. She changed her mind 4 months ago after you took her to the aquarium." 4 months ago. Keito remembered that day. Sakura had been mesmerized by the jellyfish. Keito had taken a photo for his office, then spent most of the visit on a conference call. He hadn't noticed his daughter falling in love with a new color. His phone buzzed again. A new message from Keiko. "If you get on that plane, I'm filing an emergency custody motion Monday morning. Sakura needs a parent who can actually communicate with her, and we both know that's not you." Keito stared at the words. The terrible thing was, she wasn't entirely wrong. He stood abruptly, mumbling an excuse about needing some air, and walked blindly away from the gate. He found an empty cluster of seats and sank into one, his tailored suit feeling like a straitjacket. He couldn't outrun this. He couldn't fix 6 years of missed connections with 1 week in Montana. His phone buzzed again. A screenshot of a legal document. She wasn't bluffing. Maybe she should win. Maybe Sakura would be better off. Keiko had never pretended to be something she wasn't. She'd fought for technology, for a world where Sakura could be a normal. Keito had fought for ASL, for deaf culture, but he'd been a hypocrite, championing a philosophy he'd failed to live. He dropped his head into his hands, the hum of the airport fading into a dull roar. "Mr. Tanaka?" He looked up. Anya was standing there, a bottle of water in her hand. Sakura was a few feet behind her, her expression anxious. Sakura was worried, Anya said softly. "Look, I don't know what's going on, but that little girl over there, she adores you. I've been watching her watch you." She looks at you like you hung the moon. Whatever you think you're failing at, she doesn't see it that way. Kato laughed, a harsh, broken sound. She doesn't see it because she's 6. She deserves someone who can actually talk to her, who doesn't need a stranger to translate for their own daughter. The words tumbled out. Her mother's right. I'm not enough. Anya was quiet for a long moment. Can I tell you something my brother once told my father? She finally said. My dad was apologizing to him for his bad signing, for being so slow. And you know what my brother signed back? He said, Daddy talks with his heart. That's my favorite language. Kato felt something crack in his chest. Sakura deserves someone who can talk with both their heart and their hands. Maybe, Anya conceded. Or maybe she just deserves someone who's willing to keep trying, to show up even when it's hard. Kids don't need perfect, Mr. Tanaka. They need effort. That flight to Montana, that's effort. Don't let anyone convince you it doesn't count. Kato was about to thank this kind stranger when she looked down, a faint blush on her cheeks. I'm so sorry to have intruded, she said formally. I should probably be honest. My name is Anya Petrova. I'm flying out to begin my new position on Monday. As your new household manager. The world tilted. This woman, who had connected with Sakura more in 20 minutes than he had in months, who had just delivered the most profound parental advice of his life, was his new employee. The person he had hired to manage schedules and groceries. The humility was staggering. He straightened his suit, walked back to Sakura, and knelt in front of her chair. He signed slowly, carefully. I'm okay. I love you. I'm sorry. Sakura's small hands came up, signing back with a patience that broke his heart. Slow, clear signs. I love you, too. Don't be sorry. You're here. He pulled his daughter into a hug. When they pulled apart, Sakura tugged on his sleeve and pointed at her tablet. She had drawn a picture. 3 figures, a man in a suit, a little girl with a Lucky Cat backpack, and a woman with a kind smile. She beamed and signed something else, too fast. Kato looked helplessly at Anya. She wants to know if you'll learn to sign faster, Anya translated softly. So you can keep up with her stories. She has a lot of stories to tell you. Yes, Kato said out loud, then signed it clearly. Yes. I will learn. I promise, and this time, he meant it. The boarding announcement crackled overhead. The 3 of them walked toward the gate together. As they handed over their boarding passes, Kato's phone buzzed one last time. Keiko. He silenced it and dropped it into his bag. For the next week, he was unreachable. He was just a father with his daughter, learning to listen. The plane lifted off into the sunset. Sakura pressed her face to the glass, her hands already moving. Kato watched her, really watched, seeing not just movements, but meaning. Not just signs, but stories. He reached for Sakura's hand and held on. Anya, sitting across the aisle, caught his eye and gave a small, respectful nod. A gesture of solidarity. And Kato thought maybe, just maybe, he was finally on the right path.